wait for the second season of Attack on Titan when you can watch the brand new action anime series from Wit Studio, Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress. There is absolutely no way I can talk about this brand new anime series without comparing it to Attack on Titan, because there is so much influence in this show. I mean, basically, it's just this, like, late Edo Japanese steampunk version of Attack on Titan. The only difference is the Titans themselves in this series are actually these crazy zombie people, and people aren't flying around with 3D maneuver gear, but they are using a lot of steampunk weaponry, like guns and trains. The best thing about this series, without a doubt, is the production value, and I love the character design. It's a character design that's not going to appeal to a lot of people, but for old school anime fans, I think they're really going to appreciate it, because the main character of the series, who goes by the name of Ikoma, literally looks like an anime character who was ripped from the 1970s or even the 1980s. He kind of reminds me of an old school Gundam character, kind of like Amuro Ray. Very similar design. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm all about the retro. I think some of my favorite anime series definitely come from the 70s and even the late 80s. So I really do appreciate the character design. And there's a lot of other characters in the series that certainly evoke that feeling as well. This one female by the name of Ayame. This one really badass little girl who has these bladed shoes, which are really awesome. However, there are some characters who still sort of look like your generic run-of-the-mill anime character in a modern series, and they do tend to clash with that other design a little bit. That being said, this is a show that has a lot of style, and if you're a fan of big post-apocalyptic shows like Attack on Titan and Seraph of the End, two shows that Wit Studio has also worked on, then you're probably going to get some mild enjoyment out of Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress. So, what exactly is going down in this story? Well, like I said, the premise of the show is incredibly similar to Attack on Titan, taking place in a post-apocalyptic world where these creatures known as the Kabaneri, which are basically glorified glowing zombies, going around destroying humanity, and we have this one group which is holed up, and they live in this walled city, starting to sound familiar, right? And they get around with their steam-powered weaponry and with their trains. And what happens towards the end of this week's episode is that a lot of these Kabaneri demons have actually attached themselves to this one train which is heading into town, and as soon as it busts in, it starts causing all of this chaos with citizens running for their lives, being eaten alive, and then of course we have our main character Ikoma, who is a steamsmith. Apparently he works directly in steam, in construction, and he's also trying to come up with this secret weapon which supposedly can take out these Kabaneri in one hit. Something which is built up quite a bit until the very end of this episode. But really, the first episode of the series is just about being introduced to the world. It certainly opens up with a bang where you have these soldiers who are on this train which is being attacked by all of these Kabaneri zombies, and I love it because there's this one scene where they have these like little windows that they can stick their guns out through, and this is the moment where they let you know that shit is going to get real in this show, because a lot of characters end up getting attacked, they have parts of their hands bitten off. There's this one scene of this one female character who has her hair pulled by one of the Kabaneri, and the amount of detail they put into it is absolutely terrifying, because you can actually see the skin being pulled from her scalp. It's real cringeworthy, so if you're not really into like the big over-the-top violence, this show might actually end up being a turnoff for you. That being said, if you're a fan of action anime and the horror genre, you're definitely going to get a lot of enjoyment out of this one. The rest of the episode is an excuse to introduce us to this world that the characters live in, and the main character, Ikoma, who, like I said, is a steamsmith, and he works with his friends, and he gets to meet this big higher-up family, which is just coming into town, which has this one little girl who is just so freaking badass. Like I said, towards the end of the episode, she actually fights against one of these creatures with her shoe, which has this blade at the bottom of it, and she ends up like kicking its head off, and her foot actually ends up getting stuck in this pole, which is really funny because I don't even think she intended for that to happen, but it's a great action sequence. And of course, what's also really crazy about the show, unlike Attack on Titan, and more in line with traditional zombie-like shows, is that when the Kabaneri actually like attack you or bite you, you immediately get infected by them. And they show that when you see like a bite mark, you can see all of this like purple like color start to take over their body. So if anybody ever gets bitten, it looks like there is absolutely no way to save them. So what they do is they have to commit suicide, and they do that with this thing which is called a suicide bag, which is probably one of the more unique things that I've actually seen from the show. It literally just looks like this little sack that they hold to their chest, which then suddenly just explodes. I don't really know how it works, but it's crazy. There's a scene at the beginning of the episode where this one soldier gets bitten, and all of his other fellow soldiers notice this, and they all put guns in his face, and they say, "Use the suicide bag! You gotta do it now!" And it's just a really intense scene. There's another character towards the end of the episode that does that, and then there's the character of Ikoma himself, who is trying to develop this big, badass gun which is steam-powered, which is just gonna plow right through these things. And the whole point of the Kabane is that they have a really strong body. Like, being able to get to their heart, which is the only way you can kill them, is very difficult because of the structure of their bodies. So he's created a weapon that can penetrate them completely and just take them out in one shot. The problem is, even though his gun was a success, he still ends up getting bitten by one of these things. Again, my first thought is, oh, this is way too similar to Attack on Titan. He's gonna end up becoming like a half-human, half-Kabane himself. But no, they actually go a completely different route with it. As he's getting bitten and the infection is going into his body, he actually hooks himself up to this machine where he puts these bolts into his shoulder and literally starts to asphyxiate his entire body, basically turning it into a giant tourniquet so that he can stop the infection from going all the way to his brain. And he does this long enough to the point where the infection actually manages to stop. This is an interesting twist for the series, and I didn't expect it to go that way at all. And without a doubt, I think my favorite scene from this episode is just when all of the chaos ensues at the end of the episode. When you have this train that's coming in, which is covered with all of the Kabane, and as the train is coming in way too fast, all the people who are working at the bridge, they try to lift it, but it actually doesn't work, and the train ends up crashing and just going into the walled city and causing all of this massive chaos. So what's the rundown on the very first episode of Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress? It's impossible to talk about this show without mentioning Attack on Titan. The influence is just so strong in the character design, in the animation, hell, even in the music. In that final scene at the end of the episode with Ikoma, as he was trying to stop the infection and fighting against that one creature, all of the close-up shots with the really thick lines, and when the soundtrack actually kicked in, is just so much like Attack on Titan, it hurts. The thing about the show is that it's not really doing anything new, but what it is doing is it's using good production value to tell its story. Like I said, I love the character designs. A lot of them are decidedly old school and even look like something that even Miyazaki would work on. It's a little strange to say the least, but like I said, there are some characters who don't look like they belong, and then there's some that just look like completely foreign, different type of characters from another anime series. And then you got the ending sequence of the anime, which again, I think is actually a preview to what the intro of the show is actually going to be. That's something that a lot of anime series do in their first episode. They'll show the intro at the end, and then they'll finally start showing it in the beginning when they get to episode number 2. I just cannot help but continue to be reminded of Attack on Titan with the imagery, with the characters jumping around and using their steam-powered weaponry. It's so similar to the 3D maneuver gear. And then there's the Kabane themselves, which are just like a composite of every type of zombie which has ever existed. The slow-moving Romero ones, the fast-moving ones from 28 Days, and then, of course, you have the Titans themselves. Their insatiable hunger, the fact that they'll just never stop. They only seem to have one thing on their mind, which is killing people and eating them. I'm actually not even sure if they fully just eat them or if they're frankly just trying to kill these people. They didn't really make it too clear in the episode. And then, of course, there's just the overall style of the show, which is a combination of Japanese culture, steampunk technology, and post-apocalyptic zombie future, which basically, at the end of the day, this is a steampunk, Japanese-styled Attack on Titan, where Attack on Titan takes a lot of its influence from European culture. This one takes a lot of it from Japanese culture, with a lot of the names and the overall architecture of the city and how everybody dresses. Not to mention, you have that one girl at the end with a kimono and the bladed feet. Man, that chick is so freaking awesome. That final scene at the end where she's walking through that pathway and that freaking Kabane walks up on her and she removes the sash from her neck and then just waits for the right moment to do this amazing roundhouse kick, which ends up decapitating it, was just such a fantastic scene. I'd like to see more stuff like that. The biggest difference from Attack on Titan, of course, is that these Kabane are about the size of humans. They're normal size, so they're not going to be like giant creatures. Yet, that scene where they crashed into the city and they're hanging out on the walls, I'm still just reminded of Attack on Titan. So, that's the thing. If you want to see something similar to Attack on Titan, definitely check out this show. It will certainly bring those memories to you. It might be something good to watch while we wait for the real second season of Attack on Titan. And if anything, the show is apparently original in the sense that it's not based on a manga series. This is strictly something that's just being developed for the anime. And if the ending is any indication, they are going to make some pretty big changes to the series. There's going to be more complex backstories than just fighting against monsters. That being said, this is a pretty weird and ridiculous steampunk adventure, and I can recommend it to action anime fans. Just keep in mind, you're just going to keep reminding yourself of Attack on Titan while you're watching it. So I liked the episode, but at the same time, I'm just not too blown away because it's really not all that original. But as someone who enjoys good animation and really great character design, I really enjoyed this episode a lot, and I think it's something that a lot of anime fans should at least try to give a chance. I am not going to give a score to the first episode because I frankly still don't even really know how I feel about the show quite yet. The only reason that I'm talking about it and reviewing it for you guys is because I've gotten a lot of requests to look at this show. Not to mention requests to look at a number of other different shows, and frankly I just don't have the time to look at them all. But I checked this one out last night and I thought it was just okay so far. I like a lot of the style and character designs and some of the action scenes, but I'm just way too reminded of Attack on Titan. I need to see how the series is going to grow and try to differentiate itself from its other Wit Studio cousin. So we're just going to have to wait and see. What I will say is Wit Studio loves post-apocalyptic stories. They are just completely obsessed with them. And after Attack on Titan, Seraph of the End, and even The Rolling Girls, which is not a traditional post-apocalyptic show, but it certainly has elements of that. They really love doing these type of shows, and it always just blows my mind. So check it out, action anime fans. Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress is definitely worth a watch, but be prepared, it is going to seem familiar. So, no score for this episode. I'm going to wait to see how this series evolves before I start doing that. But I want to hear from you guys. Did you watch the very first episode of Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress? What do you think of the series? Do you think it's just an Attack on Titan clone? Did you have a favorite character from this episode, whether it be the main character Ikoma or those badass girls who appear at the very end of the episode? What do you want to see from the rest of this big steampunk adventure? Make sure to tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching this review. I really appreciate it. Make sure to share it with all of your friends, and if you would like to, please subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be able to see all of our latest anime and manga reviews. You guys should also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter, and you should also check out our weekly podcast show. There will be links for all that stuff in the description box below. So thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby.